Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
Okay, so I've read the book. And all I can say is wow, because texting's been a personal thing for me for so long, a personal pet peeve. Mm-hmm. I still don't understand what I'm doing half the time, but
you're not alone.
Okay, so I have to ask you, I'm very familiar with all your other work, both written, film, everything. What made you write this book? What was the spark that made you write this book?
Well, I actually got my mom a smartphone for Christmas a couple years ago.
That's a spark for a lot of things.
Yeah, it's she was calling me all the time with like, how do I do this and how do I do that, and so I started writing her emails, and then of course she was like, well, how do I look at my email on the phone? So and just I started coming up with just instructions for her, and started thinking like there's probably other people out there that can use this kind of information. And then when I really started researching how texting has affected our society, it's really insane. And I thought, being hopefully a good communicator and in different venues and through film and in the book and other ways, like I just wanted to share communication tips and styles and help hopefully bring people together over texting rather than because there's such like a disconnect.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that as humans, I always loved email because I guess I'm an expressive. And we'll talk about your little survey in there too. I can tell you.
Yeah.
I'm like in between the entertainer and the comforter.
Oh, okay. All right.
But my expressive personality, I could do that in email.
Yeah.
Obviously, probably a little too verbose at times, but I found texting to be initially very difficult because I'd want to write I'd want to write a little book.
Yeah.
And that does not really the effective way to do it.
Well, and I think in the first chapter of the book, I talk about the purpose of texting. Like, texting isn't meant to have long conversations. It's not, it's meant for, hey, I'm going to be 10 minutes late.
Yeah.
As I sent to you earlier today, but
and I reciprocated that I am too.
So it's, it's just one of those things. There's so many different tools that we have for communication, and texting is definitely a tool in the toolbox, but it's not meant for every conversation that we have, and it's not meant for a lot of deep conversations, like and that line gets crossed though. And I think so hopefully this book will help people recognize maybe when to pick up the phone or when to see someone in person and have those conversations, but essentially making people better texters and in really any form of e-communication, whether it's Instagram messaging or Facebook messaging or Skype or Slack or they all kind of fit into that realm.
You mentioned in the book too that if you're roughly around 3 consecutive text messages together in one expression, you probably should be doing that by email. Is that correct?
Yeah, email or phone. If so I call that the rule of 3. If you have like 3 different topics or 3 questions or 3, either split that up into different conversations, different texting conversations.
Okay.
Like I don't know if you've gotten those text messages where it's like, hey, Eric, how are you? Are you free for the game on Friday? I'm thinking maybe we could grab a bite to eat before the game. And, oh, by the way, how's your mom? And you're like, whoa, that's at least 5 different topics. Like,
you know who you are.
Yeah. So, like, how am I? Well, let me really tell you how I am. And then, like, am I free Friday? Here's what I'm doing. Do I want to grab a bite to eat? So, and people tend to jam all that into one thing. And so there's so much loss of expression that's taken away from those conversations. and therefore the disconnection. Yeah, we are. That's the thing. Like, I wrote the book, but I still, I try to follow my own rules. I'm not perfect.
Well, you also give the history of texting, and we talked about. You mentioned on there that obviously with cell phones, and they called it T9 back then. I think with when the flip phones were there.
Oh yeah, the T9.
Yeah, T9.
Yeah.
Then there's a difference between SMS and MMS. Is that correct?
MMS. Yeah.
And SMS is just strictly the text, the actual text message. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. And MMS is for multimedia.
Okay, so that was if you would attach a video clip, you attach
which you can, but also then in messaging, text messaging, depending on the platform. I think iPhones you're okay, but the quality of pictures and videos when you text them, they get reduced,
compressed, right?
Yeah. So it's not really the best form for that kind of thing, but unless you're looking for that reduced quality kind of thing, which is a look for some people.
Sure. I want to talk about texting importance or non-importance in society. I guess today we have to say in 2019 that it is a significant mode of communication, right?
It's the most popular form of communication today.
Wow.
Texting, believe it or not. Yeah.
It's so hard for me to believe.
Yeah. And I prefer the phone. Like I would much rather pick up the phone and have a phone call or meet someone in person. But here we are.
In the book you talk also about what's really cool. You call it quips and scripts.
Yes.
Which I think is great because you give a lot of examples. A lot of them are funny. A lot of them I don't think I would ever use, but a lot of them I would use, and I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Which is great. But one of the most interesting things that I saw that caught my eye was that.
Tell me now. I'm curious. Like I want to know.
Well, it was the pitfalls.
Oh, the pitfalls. Yeah.
Yes. Because I'm sure all of us probably make them continually.
Yeah.
We don't give it any thought.
It's true. Yeah. We're all susceptible.
Because, oh my gosh, what would you say, in your opinion, the worst pitfall that most of us make, the number one pitfall in texting?
The number one pitfall in texting, I really think it's the overuse of acronyms, to be honest, because in the book, there's like LOL. If I use that as an example, because pretty much everyone knows LOL. In one way or another is the trick, because LOL, the way I tend to read that is laugh out loud. But another very common meaning for that is lots of love. So if you're sending, a message and you sign off with an LOL, and that person, you mean it, laugh out loud, but they take it as lots of love, that can be, an awkward moment there.
Misinterpretation.
Misinterpretation. And even in business, like I've seen so many lawsuits come up during the research of the book over using acronyms in the business world, and people misinterpret what the acronym means, and then rather than saying, hey, what did you mean by that LOL? Because in accounting or legal, it can mean loss of liability, or medical, loss of life. So there's, depending on your industry and where you're located, can have a huge impact on the meaning of such a common acronym.
Right. So that could actually be, that could end in litigation. That can end up in huge financial loss. That can end up in
loss of customers, loss of friends,
business, everything. So would you agree the medium of texting is still not really clearly defined? It's evolving. Is that a fair statement?
Definitely evolving. Yeah, and hopefully this book will have that impact and help it evolve in a positive way. That's because that's really the mission of the book. I wrote it to help people connect with other people via texting and e-communication, because there is just so much disconnect, and gosh, if I can help in some way.
Agreed. And this is where it gets interesting for me. So I am a realtor, and I work with realtors of all ages and generations and so forth. the generations that are younger than I, wonderful people, wonderful realtors, in most instances, they're all great. It's sometimes a little hard for me to adjust to the texting environment as the main mode of communication.
Yeah.
It's a hard reach for me, a person that did email so intensely for so long.
I love emails.
I do too. But that's not, and I'm finding that even, Liz, I'm finding that even more specific things are being done by text now. Quasi-legal things, arrangements and being made and so forth by texting, and that shocks me. It's kind of somewhat on par now with validity. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. There's records of texting admitted into court documents and everything like that now, and it's definitely something to be mindful of. Like it makes me cringe to hear that, because in my mind, like, text may be like, hey, I'm gonna shoot that sales doc over to you, but people are attaching like PDFs and all kind right in the text. So
it's just unorthodox to me.
Yeah.
I find it to be, and I usually, as a real estate professional, I will always yield to email. That is my default. I just feel more comfortable. There's a clear record there. But, and this is not judgmental, this is just factual as far as I see things. When I'm working with a younger agent, their first mode of communication, or sometimes their only mode of communication, is texting.
It's texting, yeah.
And they don't see the...
Emails for us older people, Eric.
I was waiting for you to say it, not
Yeah.
me, because I'm older than you, Liz. So, yeah, I'm aware. And again, but see, I guess what I'm getting at is there's kind of a dilemma out there, at least in business, as far as I can see, because you have a group of, I won't say millennials, I don't like labeling, but younger folks pushing texting for legitimacy. And you have my generation kind of pushing back on that. And we're going to lose. We're probably going to lose. But I guess the difference is, when you think about writing an email, traditionally, you do think about proper structure, proper format, for the most part. Would you not agree?
Yeah, with like sentence and punctuation and that kind of thing. Paragraphs,
salutation, sometimes,
a little sign off.
Right.
Yeah, and that's not commonly used in texting. So in the
You don't
professional
say.
world, yeah. I know, shocker.
You don't say.
Shocking news.
Oh my gosh.
But too, with like legal issues, like or in the professional and business world, texting is not encrypted. So there's also, this sense of, especially with personal identity theft, in the whole information security world, texting is not encrypted. So anything you send can be snatched by hackers over a network. And so that's one thing to be mindful of for sure in the business world. Don't send any confidential information, nothing that's sensitive, because it's not encrypted. And then
I can't tell you how many times I get text messages with, I guess it has to be a link to a PDF.
Yeah.
An open link that didn't require me to sign or anything. It was just there, which is just, anyone can get that.
Anyone can get that.
And that's not, I guess maybe emails can be hacked too, I suppose, but.
They can be, but they're easier to encrypt.
Okay.
So with, for documents and things like that. And even with texting, if you send a date of birth or any kind of, personal information, that can, even if, maybe you don't know who you're texting and they can screenshot that and they're going to have that forever, or hackers can always get in there too. So it's definitely something to be aware of.
Now, I see the benefit. Don't get me wrong. I sound like an old stodgy over here, but I really get the benefit. Case in point, I'm going to a listing appointment, and there has to be a certain code to get in a property, or I'm running late. I want to notify two parties. That maybe the listing agent, and maybe a broker, maybe another agent meeting me there, my client. I love the group aspect of it. There's ways to make texting work for a stodgy person like myself, but as the formal mode of communication, written communication, where I want to have a record, I still go back to email. But again, to repeat myself, that's being pushed back. I see, and I know it's being pushed back because I'm starting to see the structure break down in emails. I'm seeing emojis in
the emails. Yeah.
I'm seeing slang in emails, no punctuation in emails. I'm seeing text-like or more text-like verbiage in emails. And it just wants me to pull whatever hair I have left out of my head.
Yeah, I'm friends with some college professors, and they're like in term papers. They're seeing some texting lingo, and they're like, no. So for me, as an English nerd and grammar person, like that does make my skin crawl just a little bit.
But she wrote the book on texting, friends.
Yes.
Talk about slang, emojis, and again, there's a generational thing again. So I'm 53 and I'm texting a younger agent, or back and forth, we're texting each other, and that agent might be 26. There is a good possibility throughout the course of, especially if we're doing a transaction together, through the course of that transaction, there's going to be times that things are going to be lost in translation.
Yes.
There's no question. It's comical, but also can be very costly in business as well, too.
Yeah, with the back and forth, and not only lost in translation, I think it's up to 5% of text messages actually just get lost, not even lost in translation. So you might be sending a message and not hearing back and wondering why. It's very possible it's just lost in the ether.
So when you say lost, it never reaches its recipient.
Yeah, it never reaches, or there's a delay. Like I've had messages,
delays.
Like a week later, and that reach someone, and it's been a little embarrassing because then they'll message back, me, like it's a week later to me, and I get a message back from someone like, ha ha ha, that was funny, and it's, to me, it's like out of the blue, and I'm like, what are you talking about? what was funny?
In what context are you referring exactly?
So they get lost.
Up to 5% never reach it. I mean, I will tell you, people say I just text something to you and it doesn't come. Then they retext it and it does appear. Yeah. The second one. So the first one is in the ether. It's gone.
Yeah, it's just out there somewhere.
Okay, so I never gave that any thought. So that's and that would probably lead to a recommendation of why you don't want to have long texts that get broken up in chunks, right? Because what if one of the chunks doesn't get to, or the order gets scrambled?
The order gets scrambled.
That's happened to me.
Yeah. So that's due to SMS.
Okay.
Which has a 160 character limit.
Okay.
So if you're texting a longer conversation, it'll get broken up, and then the receiver is like a puzzle. You have to put it together. And
I'm aware.
One of the pitfalls. But if you do have a longer message like that you want to send, you can switch over to MMS, and then it'll send it all as one message.
Can you set your phone to do that automatically if you go past a certain characters? Yeah. I've never manually set between the two of them.
I don't know that it'll do it automatically, but depending on your texting app that you use, you can set it to always be MMS, and that way, you're always safe. But yeah.
Would you say in general, though, society and definitely the carriers in business, we're moving toward and texting might not be exactly the texting as we know it, a carrier-to-carrier text, but now you have Facebook Messenger, you have Snapchat, you have, I can't even pronounce that. I only carry 3. I'm sure there's multiple.
Oh my, there's so
many.
WhatsApp,
right?
Yeah, WhatsApp. Yeah, there's so many.
Is that all considered a texting platform generally?
Well, it has different names, like instant messaging or, whatever, but it's all essentially the same thing. It's all like little brief messages.
Okay, because I noticed that your book, the lessons you're teaching in there and just making people more aware of how to change their texting, that can apply to all those formats.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, even emails, some of the pitfalls, email can be susceptible to some of them because it's still electronic communication. So, any electronic communication, really, it's helpful.
What's your biggest pet peeve with texting?
Ooh, this is fun.
because something had to really drive you to do this book.
Gosh, my biggest pet peeve, it might be the acronyms, honestly. Like,
Okay.
because there's so many misinterpretations. Like, I had someone message me earlier this year, you're a Pittsburgh girl through to the QF.
QF.
Yeah, and I was like, QF? What? So, of course, I go to the end all and be all Urban Dictionary.
Urban Dictionary.
Yeah.
Solves
And-
the world's problems there.
Yeah, it had two meanings for QF. Neither, I don't think I can say.
Oh, you can say anything you want
air.
here. Yeah, we're
Okay, the first one, gosh, what was the first one? Oh, a quick fuck,
okay.
which didn't apply in
Didn't
that
apply,
context. Yeah.
yeah.
Or the second one was queef fart. I was like, all right.
I don't think that was either.
Yeah, that didn't apply. So I messaged back and I like screenshot it and I was like, hey, not sure what you mean by QF.
Did they give you an explanation?
No, I don't know if I offended them by sending that screenshot.
Oh
but
my
I
gosh.
Yeah, so I don't. To this day, I still don't know what I meant. I am a
We're not
Pittsburgh girl.
regulated. We can say whatever
Straight
we want
through
here.
to the
This is-
QF. That's,
Yeah, well, I
you
had
know,
to have
it's
AF
determined.
explained to me a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
I didn't
Yeah.
know AF, what that meant.
You know what else? FML. Wait, did it FML? Yeah. So
What is that?
well, let me tell you in a second.
Okay.
Because, some coworkers were messaging that to me, and I was like, FML. So again, and this was maybe like 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
And I went to Urban Dictionary, and the top definition was "fix my lighthouse," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't know you had a lighthouse." So he, we messaged back and he put FML, and I'm like, "Man, you really should call repairman." I don't know. And so that's still a joke between us, but FML, at least in that. By my coworker meant fuck my life because apparently he did not like his job very much. But so
Man,
he would.
I'm so out of it. Like,
Yeah.
I know OMG
Yeah, well, that's a good one. Yeah.
or OMFG.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I was like, and then I was seeing FML in other places. I'm like, why is everyone's so concerned about lighthouses?
Fix my life.
And I think to this day, if you go to Urban
That has to be a
Dictionary,
joke, right?
no,
Urban
it's a
Dictionary.
real thing.
Really?
It's a real. Yeah, if you go to Urban Dictionary.
But is that slang
Today.
for something else that you and I just don't
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it's like old slang or something.
Okay.
I think, but it's in there. So.
Well, there was one a couple of years ago. There was one acronym that was very long, WY, and it just went on. And I was seeing this everywhere. I was seeing people put it in their Facebook posts, and it'll come to me, I'm sure. But it was just like I'm so out of it. If I don't know
Yeah.
these acronyms, how do you even communicate?
Yeah,
I had to go to
yeah.
my kids and ask, "What does this mean?" My kids were like, "I don't know if I want to tell you that, Dad."
Yeah.
I go, great. That's exactly what I want to hear. So you think the acronyms are your biggest pet peeve? That's
Yeah,
because
that's
obviously it's
one of them.
misinterpretation then, right?
Yeah, misinterpretation. And then also, I think, when people use texting when they should be calling to for sensitive conversations or delicate conversations, and you get like a text message and you're like, WTF. Like, we need to get on that,
exactly right. But does anybody even make phone calls anymore? I have to even bring that up.
No,
because
I ask people to, I'm like, if a texting conversation is going on and it looks like it's not going to wrap up after a few messages,
that happens.
I'll pick up the phone and call them because it's faster. It's easier. It's better communication. It's so I encourage everyone really
Pick up the phone.
Yeah, pick up the phone after a few messages back and forth. Because it takes time to read and just have a 5-minute conversation. You're gonna get so much more done in your day.
I don't know how many sub 20-year-olds you've been around last year or 2 or 3, but I can assure you that I don't think any of them answer they don't think they answer their phone, like in terms of a phone call,
Yeah, that's a huge, so actually that's, I don't know if that's we as society or the technology or, a message to the parents out there, but recent studies have shown that young adults and children under the age of, I think it was 24, reported feeling very lonely most of the time.
Okay.
And
that's strictly because of the impersonal nature of their phone interaction, would you guess?
Yeah, I think that's a huge reason, because they're, they were raised with it. That's like their main form of communication, and they're not getting that, just that person-to-person connection.
We've all heard the stories, and I've actually witnessed it on a few occasions, watching my children grow up, and it was it didn't make me angry or cross, but it really made me a little sad, where they would be in a group of they'd all be sitting around, TV be blasting or music will be on, and they're sitting in couches or on the floor or whatever, and they're all texting each other, but no one's actually speaking. And it sounds comical. It's not comical. It's really a thing.
It's common. It's not And so I think that's one of the things, like, we as hopefully viable adults, how do
we're just as guilty.
Yeah. How do we do that? Because too, going out to restaurants, you see people on dates or married couples, and they're just sitting there on their phones and they're not interacting with each other. So actually on the textbook Instagram page on Fridays, I have a Feel Good Friday tip for everyone out there. And the one a couple weeks ago was, make meal times a phone-free zone. So because we need each other. We need that interaction and connection with people.
It's so prevalent now, though. It's and it's not a new phenomenon. I think that society, we've been watching this happen for 5, 6, 7 years now. Whether it's you travel a lot, airports, you see it all the time. I do a lot of formal closings in real estate. So for those who are not familiar with that is, the buyer and the seller meet at the very end of the transaction in a room. But as I've watched the last couple of years, there's just more and more agents on their phone. Agents detuned, they go in a little cocoon. And meanwhile, I feel as a realtor, we have that obligation to really be engaged with our client at all times, especially when they're giving us the honor of being in their presence and choosing to use us. So it really... And hey, I'm guilty as well too. I just find it in business at times it's a little unsettling that we are just so quick to grab that device in some of the most inopportune times.
Yeah, and I love what you just said about the honor of their presence. Like, if you're on your phone, and granted there are times where there's exceptions, but when you're with someone and they give you the honor of their presence, I'm huge for, like, being with that person, like being in the moment, being there, and
present.
Yeah, being present. Yeah, and it's just it's so important. And even when if I'm out with people, and we might do a quick phone check here or there, but if someone's on their phone for a while, like, hey, is everything okay over there? Because we're here at dinner, right? So it's.
Do you see that out in LA? Do you see it in California as much as you see when you're here? Or is there any difference there?
Yeah, no, it's universal.
Is it?
But I do. So yeah, I have I text a lot, but if I'm with someone else, I put the phone away because they have, given me the honor of their presence. I love that, and I don't want to disrespect their time and their person, and
And it's this show is flying in the face of everything that we're led to believe about modern communication. And this is relaxed, no technology, long-form conversation, discussion, exchange of ideas, the whole thing.
Wait a second. I just gotta check my phone real quick.
You wouldn't be the first who's done that on this show. I want to let you know. But it really. And I look forward to it because, I don't know. Do you ever feel as if in your life that there's something really lost compared to when you were younger with friends, because I do. And it all comes back to communication with me.
That, more and more, I repeat myself, and I say the same thing at least 2 or 3 times to make sure. And they'll, if someone's on their phone, they're, oh no, I'm listening, and I don't know. And I'm like, are you really listening? I don't know. But so I actually stopped talking and then wait for them to finish whatever they're doing because I want the full attention. Maybe I'm just needy.
No, I think it's something that we all need. We don't get it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think back into my life in prior years and how exciting technology. My first computer, we mentioned the BlackBerry, the first time I had email in my waist. How cool was that, right?
Yeah.
But there still was that circumstance where I knew the next time I could get online and check my status, my online status, basically my email, that's when I would respond.
That's a huge thing right now. And I am seeing a trend on the West Coast, actually, where people are like becoming more technology free.
Okay.
And putting on the do not disturb and putting their phones away. Because I think, you hear that ding from your phone and you feel like you need to respond right then. You don't. Leave your phone there. You get to it in an hour and just enjoy what you're doing in that moment. Like have those breaks because we need to respond right to people. But unless there's an emergency situation going on, I don't know how important is anyone.
Well, no, it's a good point. I think we somehow have conditioned ourselves to believe that the world needs to work in a state of immediacy.
Yeah,
and it doesn't.
It totally doesn't. It's fine I'm one of those people. Like if you send me a text or an email, if I'm free, I'll respond to it right away. So it's like I either get back to people in 5 minutes or 5 business days because it's like there's no.
She doesn't do it the way.
Yeah, it's just because I swipe it away, and then sometimes if I'm busy, I swipe it, and then I forget about it, and then I'll see it a couple days later. Like, oh yeah, I need to get back to so and so. But so maybe that's the other extreme. But yeah, we don't need to be slaves to our phone. And to that ding, and you hear the ding, and
See, I shut all my alerts off. I did that about a year or two ago. I don't even have my phone.
Smart.
Well, it hurts me in some regard. I have my phone ringer off, which I know drives some of my business contemporaries insane. I shouldn't do that, but I'm so tired of the device breaking my concentration. And as I get older, we guard our concentration. We do. I want to, we worry about that.
Yeah.
So I try to not interrupt that by having it off, and it serves me well. But the problem is, Liz, I know that every 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20, I have to go look and see if there are any alerts there. So I made my life a little more comfortable, I think, but still I'm conditioned to know that I need to go check that. And it's an occupational hazard with what I do for a living, I guess, but man, I wish life wasn't that way.
Yeah, there are some occupations, probably much, with yours, where, being on the phone or checking the phone, but even checking every 15 minutes,
That's better than every 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's better than every 2 minutes.
You're right. But back to the book, though, I think it's a good segue, too. Is part of the goal of this book to make the text originator, the text sender, more mindful of what they're putting out there at the beginning? Because it seems like the emphasis that I read was you want to get it right from the beginning of the thread of the conversation. Definitely,
yeah. With when you're sending a message, like the rule of 3, if there's more than 3 topics, how to text that in the best way. Or the one chapter that I love, I think it's chapter 7, is about improving the subtext of your text and diving kind of into the true intentions of what you're trying to say and how to say. Even sticky situations, how to say that in a way that's going to have a positive impact. So yeah, improving the subtext of your text from the get-go, and how to avoid the pitfalls, and a lot of the information is also good for receivers, just to be mindful of and aware of. But when you're sending text, it's definitely, that is one of the main goals.
There's a part of the book too that talked a little bit about open-ended questions as opposed to closed-ended questions to encourage conversation, which I think is so misused. And I don't think anybody intentionally misused. I don't think that we're aware that by asking the right question or responding with the right kind of answer, you are encouraging this kind of response. Case in point, let's just say you were trying to close a conversation down for expediency, you got things to do. If you respond the wrong way, I mean, there's two nice, polite ways to respond, as you show in the book. If you respond the wrong way, all you're doing is encouraging more conversation. There's got to be a way to shut it down politely, right?
Politely, yeah. The tail end of the book, the quips and scripts, there's numerous ways of how to, politely close a conversation.
Right.
And numerous ways of how to say no, but still sound friendly via text. So, I tried to give examples to people of kind of the harder things that we have to express, those tougher feelings or emotions, like, how to say I'm sorry, or and just give examples of ways to do that via texting. Yeah. It's
still no substitute, though, for a conversation, from my limited viewpoint.
I completely agree. Yeah, like in those circumstances, like I'm sorry, or whatever, to send that like right away as a buffer, but then maybe call half hour later, like send that first initial response and then reach out.
So. Here's a personal share, but I will do it because I want to hear your thought on the matter.
Okay.
As a middle-aged person a decade ago, when I was in the dating world, which is a whole other show that could go on for in laughter and a perpetuity, right?
Texting and dating. Oh my word.
So being a middle-aged person, or a younger middle-aged person on that little scale there, it infuriated me that texting was becoming a thing, and that I was having conversations with potential dates and dates, and sometimes that was just good enough for the other person, because it wasn't good enough for me, and it still would not be good enough for me today if my circumstance was. I just don't understand how you conduct an intimate long-term relationship with anyone in any capacity
via texting.
But again, that is a thing today.
It is a thing.
And it just drove me insane. And I'm glad it didn't go. Didn't need to go on much longer. But do you have any? Does that strike a chord with you? Are you familiar with any frustrations there at all?
Oh my. Yeah. We could have a whole separate show, like you said, on texting in the dating world. But there's whole relationships. I think I heard a story a month or so ago. There was a couple that dated for a year, but they never actually saw each other. It was just all via texting.
How's that possible?
I don't know.
And that's considered to me,
that's not dating.
And that'd be a different word, whatever that is.
Yeah. Maybe we need a new word for that.
Well, there's so much lost in translation. That's the essence of your book, is to try to. And I will tell you. So let's stay on the dating thing for a second. Would you not agree? There's probably so much unnecessary fighting, inner and quarrels, and stress and uneasiness in relationships because things that should be communicated verbally or in person are done through a medium such as texting.
100%. There's so much misinterpretation because, and we talked about this briefly before the show, but we as humankind over centuries have developed communication skills, and they go a lot with, like, as I'm moving my hands and the tonality of my voice and facial expressions. And 93%, there was a study at UCLA, 93% of the way humans interact and communicate is nonverbal. So it's all those things, the facial, and only 7% is the words. So in texting, that's all stripped away. You only have that 7%. So the person who is receiving the text, they're getting that 7%, and then they interpret that however they're feeling that day. And you as the sender have no context of what's going on in their world. Are they completely distracted? Is there a dog barking? Is there a kid crying? Are they driving? Like, are they had a flat tire and they're just having an awful day, and you send a message that you mean to be like, just like, hey, whatever. and they take all that emotion that they're already having that day and that, you know, whatever's going on in their world, that's what they're putting into that text message that they read. So, especially texting and dating.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't know, you know, how that, yeah.
Yeah, and
that's my official
well,
thought on it.
let's not even well, let's not even talk just dating, being married. I mean, any long-term or long-term committed relationship. If you, I don't have to lecture the audience. Everyone listening and watching this show knows already.
We've
they
all
know.
experienced it.
They know, but we keep doing it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And the one wish I have for my children, which, you know, I've said this multiple times to both of them, both still teenagers on the end of that run, that it's going to be hard to maintain real relationships in this world if they're not real relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it comes back to that base level connection that, you know, we as a society, it seems to be, you know, diminishing. And
For expediency, you think?
You know, I don't know if it's expediency or what the root cause is, but texting is definitely contributing to it. And yeah, man, just to bring back some connection into that world.
When I was in sales, there was a misconception about me that I was fearless. I could just go talk to anybody. You know, I don't know why that people around me thought that.
You seem fearless.
I'm not.
You look just like a lion.
Thank you. I am not. And when email came, it was really, I remember myself going, wow, this is great. If I really don't want to have that awkward conversation with someone, if I don't want to have to go through that uneasiness or even going and seeing them, I can send them my emotional email, you know, and lay it all out there. So basically I was being okay with a barrier being put between me and the other human. I was excited about that. And I think that when I go back and I look at then doing an online business where people were sending me money and I never spoke with them on the phone. We were just exchanging emails. They were sending me money. I was sending them product. Wow. There's no stress there. I don't have to really communicate with them. You see, I think that what I observed was a microcosm of where we are today, where this form of communication has removed human interaction and the anxiety or the anxiousness in some people that goes along with that. Is that a fair assumption, do you think?
100%. Yeah, totally. It's you know, it's one of those things, texting, and I think it's the 7th pitfall that I list in the book, is just that we're naturally detached when we use our phone for communication, because you're just interacting with this little gadget. You don't see the look in the other person's eyes or like how they're receiving that information. So there's a natural detachment there.
See, so the investment in the conversation is not necessary.
Yeah.
Where every conversation we've had prior, when there was a real analog phone in your home that you'd pick up and call somebody, or I guess you could send them a letter, but we didn't do that because there was a latency issue of time. But you're not really invested in a conversation. You're not invested in a relationship. And relationship's a funny word. People think that texting is a I guess you have a texting relationship for business, or a communication can be considered, I guess, kind of a relationship with somebody.
It can be. Just context. Like anything else, you know, it's a skill. Communication is a skill. Being in a healthy relationship, but they're like skills, and there's boundaries, and there's all these things. So when we're not communicating effectively and not, you know, communicating as much and getting more and more detached, we're starting to lose those skills. So, it's like, you know, I feel like the textbook could be used in high schools, in colleges.
It's an excellent, excellent book. And in that book, too, you have I don't know if you call it a quiz or a survey.
Oh, the personality. Texting personality. Yes.
Yes. Do that. To those who acquire the book, and you should acquire the book. Yeah, that was an eye-opener for me. I already kind of knew. I did the Myers-Briggs and all that stuff. So I kind of knew where I stood there. But it does affect the way you communicate.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. With, because our personality, that, that affects everything that we do, right? So, of course, it's going to translate into how we're texting. And, so in the book, the 4 texting personalities, people can take the quiz. And, it tells you your texting personality and traits, and are you prone to send emojis or not emojis? Are you prone to talk about feelings over text or not? Like, and how to communicate better with the other personalities. Because I think once you read that chapter, or once people read the chapter, they can kind of assess who in their life might be like which personality.
I did that immediately.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Yeah.
But I think once you identify them, it really is good to have that in your mind, because that you can, I think, adjust your response back in a way that it'll be even slightly sometimes better received.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you're speaking their language more.
Yeah, there's no question. And that's, I think, again, that it comes down to that communication thing. I read a book by Anthony Robbins in the 80s. I guess it was his first book. Whether you like Anthony or not, it's really irrelevant. But that first book, I think it was called Unlimited Power or something. And I don't know if I got a lot out of that book, but there was one thing about modeling, which was when you would go interview or you go for a sales presentation, or you sit and meet with someone you didn't know, you would kind of model their behavior. And I found that it worked incredibly well, almost like magic. If they were leaning in, you'd lean in. If they had a very laid-back style of speaking, then you adjust your style. And then I got to the habit of doing that, Liz, and it was wonderful, because in most instances, as long as you weren't like deliberate about it and they'd pick that up,
Yeah,
but it worked.
That works. I read a similar book for relationships, like dating and marriage, where if you're trying to get to know someone better, and I think this book suggested, and this was by, I'll remember the author's name, but he was saying that we sometimes will naturally do this with people that we like, is that we model their be like lean in, or if they're sitting with their hand on their chin or whatever, you start to kind of mirror some of that
But my overall point was, isn't that real communication? Isn't that real interaction? And I don't know if the generations coming up are going to get to experience that, which I know it sounds far-fetched, but it really kind of isn't.
They, I think they will. They'll experience it, because, you can't be on your phone all the time.
No,
you have to go out into the world.
I know.
Sorry, kids, you're going to have to do it. But, so they'll get to experience that. And one of my friends recently told me a little, speaking of this, when you're with someone on a date, or hopefully your spouse, if that person likes you, their feet will point towards you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a tell.
There's a tell. So even people who try not to do the other tells, that they forget about their feet. So I don't know if I'm giving that away. Now people will be mindful of where their feet are pointing, but
interesting. But even all of this, though, is I think a special part of the human condition. This interconnectivity, this it goes beyond physical intimacy and relationship. It's really the verbal thing. It's the whole in touch with each other. And I think a lot of that, which is remedial stuff, we grew up in a world where that was the way the world operated, right?
It's just how it was.
And it's just over like a 25-year period, slowly, maybe not slowly, it's just kind of changed. And that's where I think the book's amazing, because it's saying, hey, wait, this is the way it is. You understand texting's not going anywhere, or that texting platform, the mode of communication, is going anywhere. But if you're going to use that as a significant part of your life, then really start paying attention in the way that you do it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100. Yeah, people need to do that. I keep saying 100%. I'm not a math person. What is going on here? But no, it's we all can be more, I think, mindful of how we're texting and do it just better.
Yeah.
Communicate better via texting.
So to make a little bit of left turn, you are a Pittsburgh resident, or right turn. My left is your right. Two rights. Yeah. I don't know. You are a Pittsburgh resident.
Yes.
And you have you went to California in 2011, correct?
Correct.
And she didn't come back, so she must like it out there.
I do.
The weather's more nice on here. I can see.
I like to ski, but I like snow on my terms. So I'll like go up to Tahoe for the weekend or Mammoth, and then I have my like 3-4 days of skiing and snow, and bundled up in my hot cocoa, and then go back to the beach.
But you were always, and I've known Liz for a decade now. I haven't seen her in quite a while. That's why I was so delighted to see the success of the book, and you were coming home. And thank you for coming in today. Time worked out good. Yeah,
it really did.
Okay. She's that rare kind of person you meet where she's got that analytical mind, as it is witnessed with this. And I'm going to read this exactly as it's written because she graduated cum laude. Is it cum laude or cum laude? I don't know, because I'm the furthest thing from it. From the University of Pittsburgh in 2002. In computer science, but you also in professional writing. Doesn't that require both left and right brain working in cohesion?
Yeah, well, it was kind of funny because I was a writing major, and then I was looking around and seeing all the English grads and writing majors, and they're working at as servers, and I'm like, I think I need, I need something a little more. And I was working on a term paper on a computer. And I looked at it and I was like, well, these will be around for a while. So that's literally when I started taking the computer science courses. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm going to do this until my writing takes off. So, and it took a while, but.
and it did. And then you moved to California. And I had lost touch with you for a couple of years. And I just couldn't believe the body of work you were working with. And then doing all the skiing, I did see all the skiing, all the social media skiing pictures. Yeah, I did see all that. I'm a little jealous in that regard. But talk a little bit about when you went to California. Was there any adjustment for you, or if you fit in immediately, you thought, hey, this is kind of where I need to be?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because even when I lived here before moving, and people would meet me, and then they'll say, "Where are you from, California?" I'll say, well, no, but maybe I should be. So I feel like for me, personality-wise, and being in the creative endeavors and those kind of things, like I fit in really well in that regard. It was still a pretty big adjustment, and it's still every time I get on the 405 to drive, I'm
so
like,
you don't envy the traffic. Not that our traffic's great here, but we have 2 and 3 lane highways in LA. It's just absolutely insane, right?
It's 405, I think, is 12 to 14 lanes, I think, at its, And
if you take someone from Pittsburgh who's never been out there and you put them on that highway for the first time, especially driving, seems
way more narrow. Like, I don't know, they're like, I constantly look left and right. Yeah, because they're trying to squeeze everyone on there.
Well, talk a little bit about your film endeavors out there, because it's pretty impressive.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's one thing I think that I've come to realize in any industry, a lot of it is kind of comes down to who you know and networking, and so when I first went out there, I just tried to do a bunch of whatever I could on any film set, and I talk about this in the Voyage LA article. My 3 things for my 3 tips for success is, follow your passion and work hard at it. Number 1. Number 2, be kind, because on any film set, like even A-listers will get fired, and if you're kind and you're working hard, people will want to ask you back. So I don't know if it's just my kindness and they know, well, she doesn't know what she's doing, but she'll work hard at it. So, and then the third, follow your passion and be you. I think that's 3 keys for success by Liz Rossi.
There you go. See, coin, that's a new book. Yeah, that's a new book. Well, besides obviously the weather and this, I've had multiple folks on that have moved to LA and come back. Frank Murgy, just a bunch of folks, great folks. Bobby Walden. They talk about lifestyle. It's just you really can't. You can visit and be aware of it, but once you live there, it was an adjustment for them. Some of the pace, some of the way things are done. Did you find any difficulties in adjustments at all?
Yeah, I think it is important. It's a bigger city, so there's so many amazing things to do,
Okay.
like all the different activities and
Right.
different places to go and eat and things to go and see. And so you really do have to put some boundaries there. Like probably on any given day, there's at least 2 or 3 extremely fun sounding things that you
Okay.
could go and do with friends or family or whoever. So for me, like I make sure to have at least a couple nights a week, 2 or 3 nights a week where I'm just at home vegging on the
Okay.
couch. Like I have a date with my dog on the couch and we're watching whatever movie.
All right.
Because like, I need that kind of balance in my life. So for some people that might be 5 nights a week. For some people
Got
it might
it.
be 1 night a week.
Got
But
it.
yeah, there's there's so much to do out there, and it all sounds fun to me. Like, so, like, I want to get out and do as much as possible.
Talk a little bit about the movie, because this certainly was on my profile, was the Roberto Clemente film.
Oh yeah.
Talk about the creation of that and how that came about.
Yeah, so my brother Rich, who he was, the pioneer. He moved
Right.
out there first in the mid-90s, and he's always loved Roberto. He's a huge fan.
Right.
He has Roberto stuff like all over the place. So
He's a good one to have, though, if you're going to decorate your space, right?
Yeah. So he wanted to do kind of this biopic film on Roberto,
Right.
and I was fairly new out there, maybe in the first couple of years, and we were talking about it, and I had started to get into some production, like producing films,
Right.
and I think by then I was the first assistant director on a feature. So I had a little bit of experience under my belt. And so we worked together on that. Like he did the bulk of it, but he, let me kind of come on to the projects and have my input and help out, with the talents that I could bring to it. So it wound up, I think it's baseball's greatest hero.
Right.
Yeah. And
Why the change in the names? It's just how Hollywood works. There's probably a treatment, then the names change a couple of times until it's done.
Yeah, it changes. Oh my gosh, the change.
Is that a can of worms for you there?
From the start of a script until the end of when it's on screen is two completely different
Really?
films. So yeah, it can be. So unless if you're the director and the writer, I think so we've been seeing more of that. I think in the last decade or so, where directors want to make their own films that they've written, and I think a lot of it comes down to they want to keep the kind of the integrity of the project intact.
Oh, absolutely right.
Yeah, because you send some scripts in. And they're like, well, we really love your work, Liz. We love this script. We just want to add this character here and put what's on page 5 on page 73. And then we want to flip-flop these 5 scenes with these 5. And you're like, okay.
So that's got to be a conundrum.
Yes, that is
How do you
a good
handle
word
that?
for that.
Generally, or is it case by case?
It is case by case. I think, I handle it much better now. But
Okay.
yeah. But, because being a new writer, like this is your work. It's your masterpiece. And these people are coming in and
It's part of you.
Yeah, they're not appreciating. But, then you come to realize the more minds sometimes that contribute to a project, there's just more that adds to it. And working together in that collaboration process, I think can be...
Sounds like a big excuse to convince yourself.
Yeah. Maybe I'm still working on it. I don't know. Yeah. So,
No, I get it in premise. I mean, obviously, there's 2 ways to look at it, right? If you really think you have a masterpiece, it doesn't matter if it's the most accomplished directors and producers and writers imaginable, you're not letting me touch that, right? You don't want anybody to touch that.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you kind of don't. But
were you ever surprised that you took the suggestion or you took the direction? You go, wow, that kind of works.
Yeah, that's definitely happened, and it's happened the other way too.
I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
So,
but,
talk about All Saints Eve, because that was the one that put you on the red carpet, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, there's been a few. There's been a few. But yeah, All Saints Eve, oh my goodness. So I wrote that actually when I was married. So it's a horror film. Currently divorced.
So give me a time. Well, no. Let's really figure this one out. So from a time frame, when did you write that?
So that I think I started writing that around 2003 and 2004.
Okay.
Yeah, 2004, I think. But so actually I was here, so I was still here in Pittsburgh,
right.
And there was I have my group of friends, whom I love. I see them, still see them when I come out, and but it was Halloween, and for whatever reason, our one friend was all about limos, so we ended up taking a limo to this haunted house, and then we're waiting in line, of course, to get in. And there's those masked characters coming up behind people with like scaring them with, a fake knife or whatever, the chainsaw, And I was like, what's to stop someone, like some psycho, from putting on a mask and like going to the house and snatching people inside the house? And I'm so glad it's after Halloween, because I hate to put that fear in people now. But, I'm like, that's like a real thing that could happen. And I think, hopefully All Saints Eve didn't contribute to this, but I think it actually did happen 2 years ago. There was someone who, whatever, they put on a mask and they went into a haunted house and, they weren't acting.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's, so I had that idea for the film and for the screenplay, and then I wrote that 2004. And then my brother Rich, he was like, yeah, that's a great concept. Da, 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 da. You're in the perfect place to film it in Pennsylvania. He said, why don't you should try to like self produce
right.
Which I had no clue what I was doing. So like that was a little bit of a train wreck, but a lot of good life lessons. And then for whatever reason, it got some media attention back then when I was producing it, and it attracted the attention of some executive producers, who then later, there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of emails back and forth for a few years, I think, until they bought the script. After I moved to California. So I think it was 2011 or 2012. So 5 years later of emails back and forth, like,
Sometimes it takes that long.
Yeah. Like, what's going on? Do you still like this script? And then, so that came out in like 2015, maybe? Somewhere
13,
around there.
Maybe?
Yeah, 13, I don't know. Somewhere around there.
Well, if you don't remember, how am I remembering? I'm reading your words. So what's obviously I will get to Pittsburgh in a second here, but what's on the horizon for you? What's the next writing project, or can't you divulge that yet?
Well, I have a couple really amazing projects that I'm working on. I'm so excited about.
Okay.
Writing an animated feature film.
Okay.
That I'm finishing up, and hopefully that'll get out there soon.
Okay.
So I'm super stoked for that, and then I'm looking at ideas for a second book, and then I think the third thing that's kind of capturing my attention right now is actually more in the music side of things. Because a couple years ago I was on set, and I don't know how it came out, but someone was like, we need 3 minutes of music for this scene, and I was like, I got it, don't worry. And no one really knew that I played or that I come from a musical family up until that point, but they were like, oh, okay, so I came back and I had a few minutes of music for the score, and they were like, hey, yeah, that kind of worked. So then since then I've done a couple little film scores.
Okay.
And then most recently, I'll throw a plug out there for a show called Who's the Best?
Okay.
Which just aired its first pilot episode aired last week.
All right.
And I did the theme song for it. So,
yeah,
really amazing.
How about that? Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. So, super excited for that. And, music, for me, like, music is like breathing air.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just such a part of who I am and how I was raised. Mm-hmm. And so I think, you know, to be able to use some of that, you know, and hopefully influence projects and help.
Right.
And it's also pretty cool because there's not as much editing there is with the scripts. Like they come back and they might say, you know, can we make it a little more, you know, comical or more fun, or can we add some more action sounds to it, or we want more of a sci-fi or whatever. But they're not like, we want to move measures 8 through 12 to the end and you know. So I feel like it's a little bit more of me getting out there.
Sure.
Which, yeah.
Do you find it easier when you're writing screenplays, writing films, that because of your music background, it's easier? You can hear the score in your head, or you have an idea of what you want the score to sound like? How much input do you have on the score?
Well, if I've been asked to do the score, then a lot.
Okay, I would hope so.
But
have you ever pushed back on a score?
Well, you know, I would if I really felt strongly like we should not have that bass drum in there. I would definitely raise my opinions.
Okay.
But
fair enough.
yeah, I don't think I've ever had to do that.
Okay.
So, which is pretty cool. Yeah, knock on wood. Yeah. Now that I say that. But yeah, so that's been really neat, and I feel like since my dad has passed and my brother Pete has passed, I think, you know, it feels like a really cool way to help carry on their legacy.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're home for the holiday.
Yes.
We don't date the shows, but it's roughly around Thanksgiving here. What do you love about Pittsburgh? What do you miss about Pittsburgh?
Permanis.
Not a damn thing.
Permanis sandwiches.
I can see that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And of course, my friends and family. I should have said them first.
Permanis shapes. Permanis shapes. Oh yeah, the people, my loved ones. Permanis. You can send the check to the Eric McKenna Project, and if I got wall space, you would like to sponsor the show. Kidding.
But yeah, there's a lot of great things that I miss about Pittsburgh. Definitely, you know, there's definitely more of a just the culture of people here being, you know, like it's funny, and I might get in trouble. But
we definitely want to hear this.
No, but I know, like, if I make plans with someone from Pittsburgh,
okay,
and it can be plans for a month from now,
okay,
2:00 on Saturday, whatever, we're gonna go to lunch, and maybe I don't talk to that person until that day. I know that is still happening. 2:00 at whatever restaurant we're gonna meet.
You're
for
sitting
lunch.
here.
Yeah.
Maybe. there must be a storm outside.
Yeah, it was pretty windy, I think.
Yeah, that might be it.
But yeah, so I know that plan is gonna happen. In LA, like a lot of times, I'll make plans with someone for 2:00, and it might be for lunch tomorrow.
Okay.
I will still confirm with them that morning.
Understood. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
because there's you know, there's the pace and the lifestyle there. There's so many things going on, and I think being in the entertainment industry, there's a lot of people who so it's not all like the people are all flakes or whatever, but there is you know, people get called in last minute for auditions,
right,
and all kinds of things. So and for like editing projects, believe it or not, like I know some editors, and they're like, oh yeah, no, I thought it was done, but they need this, and the project deadline is here, so you know, I really, you know, let's postpone that lunch. So yeah, so that's, you know, so wait, going back to the original question.
You love the fact that if we're saying we're going to do something, generally we do it.
Yeah, which, yeah, I like that.
Don't you miss the snow?
No, I like snow on my terms. 3-day weekend, 4-day weekend. Yeah.
But do you have another book in mind?
Yeah,
Is that on the
I
horizon?
have a few other ideas for other books.
Okay.
And they're marinating. They're
So
going on.
I find it fascinating. You did a nonfiction book, almost a
Yeah.
reference manual, which
Yeah.
it doesn't read that way. You did a great job, so
Oh,
it
thank you.
doesn't read that way.
Yeah, I
'Cause-
tried to make it like lighthearted and comical because no one wants
Oh,
to.
it's very relevant too, and,
Yeah.
I think that
Thank you.
I think it'll hit any age bracket. It's accessible to any age bracket, which I think is fantastic.
Thank you.
But that's the difference between nonfiction and fiction. So now you've done everything now, right?
Well, I don't know about everything. There's still something. That
Well, and would you not say most authors stay on one side of the fence or the other? Generally.
Yeah, generally. And I think so there's been people who have said, like, Liz, you really need to pick like one genre or
Right.
thing, because like then you make a name for yourself in that,
Right.
and then maybe you branch out. But I'm like, no, I want to do it all.
I want to do it all.
I do. But yeah, so I've done the fiction and now nonfiction and music and books and film, and
I know. It's exciting.
yeah, it's crazy.
Pittsburgh girl went west and did exceptionally well.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun, but I tell people it's a lot of hard work too. There's no one knows how many nights go into being an overnight success.
There you go.
I heard that quote once and I was like, yeah. I mean, there's days, 16, 18-hour days working, like,
But it's your dream.
End after end, yeah.
And you have the passion for it.
And that's the thing. If it's your passion and dream and your work, it doesn't feel like work.
Right.
Like I feel like I slack off so much.
At least she's honest about it.
Yeah, I'm actually working, but
Awesome.
yeah,
You can come back and see me?
100, yeah,
For sure.
100%. See, there
Awesome.
you go. Yeah, for
this
sure,
was
for sure.
fantastic, and
Yeah.
it means
Yeah,
a lot.
I really enjoyed it.
I haven't seen you in so long. This is good to get
Yeah,
back
it's been
together.
really good. It's really
Reacquaint
good.
ourselves.
Yeah,
All
maybe
right.
the next one we can do on dating, texting and dating.
Texting and dating and the next one. Maybe we'll do a
Yeah.
round table, because I have a
That would be fun.
friend of mine who you would love her. She may really be interested in doing that with us. So.
Yeah, that could be fun.
Yeah, you coming back in for Christmas?
Not this Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah, since I'm here now, and yeah,
That makes sense. I understand.
I have ski trips.
I know. Well, I'm going to keep in touch with your schedule, and next time you're back in
Yes.
Pittsburgh, I'd love to get you back.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric.
All right, in the book, the text book, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, everywhere, correct?
Yeah, everywhere, and also the text-book.com.
Oh.
Yeah, is a thing.
The text-book.com.
Text-book. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a Kindle version too.
Yeah, there's Kindle. And if they have the Kindle library, it's actually free.
Really?
Yeah, how about that? I know.
That's a good gig
It's a
there.
little bonus. Yeah, so anyone who needs or is buying a new cell phone for people this Christmas, a little companion book.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a good. You've picked
Yeah.
up marketing too.
There we
I see
go.
in the years
Yeah.
you've been out. Thanks again, Liz.
Thank you, Eric.
Appreciate it. See y'all. What'd you think?
That was fun.
Was it?
Had so much fun. Yes.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, that's